everybody, this is Christy with Christy Cooper Design in Mountain Home, Arkansas. And today what I want to show you is how to stack cut masks. So right now the CDC has come in and they've said everybody should be wearing masks when they go out. I think this is a great idea. But you know what, guys? We need a lot of masks. So I actually own a custom drapery workroom, and what's really important about what we do is everything we do, we need to make it efficient, production style. So I have come up with a way to stack cut mask where you can cut 30, 36 masks at a time, or more, depending on how comfortable you are with this procedure. So I'm going to show you how this works. But first off, I want to talk a little bit about what we need. The first thing we need is a long ruler. Now, I happen to have a 60-inch ruler. Do you need a 60-inch ruler? No. 36-inch ruler is fine, but if you have two, you might want to actually tape them together. The other thing that I am working off of is the pattern that is 6.5 inches by 9.5 inches. So what I have done to make this quick and easy on down the road is I am pre-doing some things. I have actually gone in on my ruler and I have marked 9.5, 19. So every 9.5 inches I have marked on my big ruler. On my small ruler, I have marked every 6.5 inches. So could you mark these both on the same ruler? Sure, just mark one on one side and one on the other. Not a big deal. You just need a quick and easy way without just going, okay, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. The other thing, I know a lot of you don't have big tables like this. I have a really large work table. It's 5 feet wide, and I actually have put pins every 6.5 inches because what our goal is to cut long 6.5 inch strips of the fabrics that we want to use. So the next thing we're going to need, of course, is scissors and pins, and unfortunately I can't see very well, so I need my reading glasses sometimes. So what I want to show you first is so I actually have marked my table every 6.5 inches down both sides of the table. Now, how would you do something like this at home? If you have blue tape or blue masking tape or just regular masking tape, you could actually go on your tabletop or your bar top and put a piece of straight tape all the way across every 6.5 inches. And that's going to give you a guide for your scissors. Or we can actually mark with a marker. So I'm using both techniques. I will show you both, and you use what you're most comfortable with. So in my workroom, our tabletops actually have lines across. This is what I was just telling you you could do on your tabletop or your bar top or any flat surface, card table, whatever you have that you're going to be laying your fabric out on. Now the goal is to use the biggest, longest pieces of fabric we can so that we can just cut everything at one time and sew everything at one time versus making a bunch of little bitty pattern pieces and doing each one individually. I am going to show you how to make this so we're doing it quickly and in bulk. So one of the things, if you're comfortable with your tape method and don't want to use an ink pen, you could actually put your tape on the table and then you would put your fabric down and make sure everything is squared up, and then you would just watch and pull back and cut along your tape line. Now that is really, really easy to do. So now remember, guys, these don't have to be perfect. When we're doing draperies, yes, that needs to be perfect, but this is better done than perfect. We need to get these things out there to our communities and to our healthcare providers and to our paramedics and to our police officers and firemen. We just need to get these out there as quick as possible. So I'm giving you my method of, if I were doing it in my workroom, how we would do it. So what I wanted to tell you about is how to do stack cutting. So our goal is to actually cut 2 layers of fabric or more together, so when they're ready, they are long strips that can be taken straight to the sewing machine and do one long strip that'll make 4, 5, 6 masks at one time once they're cut apart. So what I'm going to do is, first off, we want to take our face fabric and we're going to lay it out flat. Now, a good way to lay fabric out flat, especially if you have short arms like me, is just to take your long ruler and use it to lay everything flat and to smooth everything out, just like that. So it's really very easy. So one of the reasons I put pins on the table is because I can use my very, very long ruler to mark lines all the way across very, very quickly. So I can literally just put my ruler straight up against those pins, and all of a sudden I have a marking guide that I can come in here and just reach as long as I can and mark it all the way down, and that's going to give me nice straight lines to cut. Now, there's another way to do that, and that is actually a folding stacking method. So keep in mind, we now have our face fabric with the face up, our lining fabric with the face down, so it's inside out right now. So one way you can cut it is you can either just come and start cutting where we've cut our lines. I'm going to go ahead and throw that pin out because I don't need it. And we're going to just cut as far as we can. And then normally, because this is a big table, I would have to go all the way around to the other side of the table, way over here, and you can probably just see my hands. I don't know if you can see me or not. And I would have to come in and cut, just like that. Now, I'm short. I have short arms, so what I would probably do instead, because I have already lined up my fabric, I have a straight edge here and a straight edge here, right? That's a 90-degree angle. So I know as long as I keep this straight edge all together, that everything's going to be nice and straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here with my hands and with my arms, and I'm going to pull this fabric together so it is in a better length for me to work. And then I can take my ruler again and I can spread it and smooth all this out. See, I can actually reach this. It's pretty amazing. So again, I'm using my pins. You can either use your pins or use whatever measuring device you want to make this really easy to mark. So I've already marked that one. I'm going to come down here and continue marking. If I had tape, which I don't, if I had my tape, then what I would do, and I have accidentally removed one of my pins, so we're going to guess that that is the right spot. Nothing's perfect, right? And if I had tape, I wouldn't even have to use my ruler. I would already have my tape down, and I could just cut and peek and cut along those tape lines really, really easily. So I'm going to come across like this, and I'm just going to continue marking. Now what I have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces that are about 48.5 inches long. So I'm using 39 inches of fabric, and I'm using basically to here, which is 48.5 inches. And that's going to give me 30 masks. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to go in here and we're going to cut these apart. It's really easy. See, that's as easy as it is. So now what you want to do is you want to go through here and you want to cut each of these lines. Now, we're not worried about our 9.5 inches yet. We are only worried about our 6.5 inches. So go through and cut your long strips of 6. Now, I happen to have a 10-foot work table, so if I were doing this in the workroom, we might change our method a little bit, and we might do these 6.5 inches that way, and our pieces would be 6.5 inches wide by 10 feet long. I know that seems really big, but it's the fastest way to get this done and get all the cutting done as quick as possible so that it can go to the sewing machine or to the seamstress if somebody's cutting and somebody else is sewing. That's the great thing about stack cutting, is anybody can do it you don't even have to have sewing experience to cut material. If you can operate a pair of scissors, which if you're left-handed, you do need a pair of left-handed scissors, because my son, who is left-handed, cannot use a regular pair of scissors. They just don't work for him. So make sure you have appropriate scissors, but anybody can cut. So now that you've done that, you have all of these strips that are your 48.5 by 6.5 long. And at this point, I would probably pin them. Now, if I had this all laid out and cut all the way across, I would probably leave everything flat and go ahead and pin each as far as I can reach. And I'd probably get a little step stool. But what you want to do is you want to pin down the edges. Now, one of the things to be aware of, you do not want to put any holes where the mask part is. You only want to put pins in where any seam allowance or anything that does not need, you're not going to be breathing through. Okay, so really important, don't poke any pins through here, only on the sides. Okay, now that we've got this all pinned, we're actually going to take it to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch down those long edges. So like I said before, we're going to end up with long strips of the face-to-face fabric and lining. Okay, we're done sewing that. So now what we have is we have a long tube that looks like this. So now all we want to do is reach in here, because luckily it's wide enough. We can reach in here and we can pull it inside out. We'll see if I can get this done. What you can do is you can tape it to the end of the ruler and you can turn it inside out. But so what we're doing is we are turning it inside out. See, now I have a big tube of fabric that is already sewn to our width, this direction, right? Anybody look like that? Okay, so now that I've turned it inside out, I'm actually going to lay it down and I'm just going to kind of finger press this. You could press it with an iron. I'm not going to do that at this point. I probably really would, but I'm trying to make this a little bit quicker for you. So anyway, now that I have this nice and flat, now I'm going to take my ruler that I have marked to 9.5 inches and I'm going to put it on one side and I'm going to mark 9.5, 19, 28.5, 38, you get the point, all the way down to 48.5. And then I'm going to bring it down and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mark it really quickly. See how fast this goes? Now, keep in mind, I already have, this is going to be 5 masks, right? Now, we're going to get to the hard part sewing here in just a little bit. Now, I'm going to eyeball this. Remember, doesn't have to be perfect. All these ends are going to be pushed in. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to cut this. And if I cut all my pieces, I'm going to end up with 5 pieces that are 9.5 inch wide. So now that we've turned it inside out, a really good, easy way to turn the ends in without having to use an iron is you can actually take and kind of fold in just a little bit, say like a 1/2 inch, and maybe a 1/2 inch over here. And if you pull it taut, then both sides go in. See, like that? So that makes it really easy. So now you have a piece, and if you want to press it at this point, that's okay. Now you have a piece that's turned in kind of like this. So in our drapery workroom, we use a lot of cheaters. So we do all of our math and all of our calculations first, and then we create little templates like this. So like this one is a 6-inch template that's going to make this finished side 3 inches. So what I have done is I've marked bottom and top. I've come in 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 3/4, 3 1/4, 4 1/2, and 5 inches, and then this last mark is the 6-inch mark. So I've already gone on ahead and marked it on the fabric with ink so that you can see it. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the second mark and fold the first one. It's really easy if you use like a straight pin. Put the first one there and fold it over and clip it. Straight pin, or you can use anything. Screwdriver, whatever you have. And you can even do this at the sewing machine. It's really fast if you do this at the sewing machine, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So There, I'm going to clip 2. And now I have got my piece that it's not going to work with 2. It worked with 2 a few minutes ago. My goodness. So it's 3 inches. I've got 2 pieces of 7-inch elastic. Now folks, all I had was 3/8 of an inch. You're going to want to use a 1/4 inch or smaller elastic. But I didn't have any. Now if you don't have elastic, this is where you put your ties in too. So now I have this little pocket here, right? So I just stick my end in there. And then I'm going to come back around and I'm going to stick my end over here like that. And that's where I take it to the sewing machine, and then I would sew down that edge. Now at each place where it overlaps, I would probably back tack, or I would come down this and I would stitch this at least 2 times. So I might stitch in just barely from the edge, maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and then come out another 1/8 of an inch or so and stitch again. So you have 2 lines running down that side to hold those pleats in really well. So y'all may kind of laugh at my sewing machine. See all this bit of tape? We use tape for our markers, for our seam allowances and stuff. So now what I've done is I'm going to just come in just a little bit from this edge, and I'm going to stitch down. I'm going to go forward, I'm going to back tack, and then I'm going to stitch down. And again, I'm not trying to be perfect. Now because this is so small, you can actually come in with something like a pen, or like I'm going to use my good old handy dandy screwdriver to help just push that fabric through and to keep it straight. Now once I get to the end, probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to come in and stitch again just a smidge over from that, and that's going to keep those pleats all nice and tight. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to back tack again. So now we have one end of a mask. See how easy that is? That is so easy to do. We now have one end of a mask. Now you're just going to repeat that on this other end. So remember what we did, we just put our fingers in and we just pulled it taut, and that created that end. Now use your cheater to fold it and take it to the machine and do just like this. And when you're done, you'll have a mask. Now one of the things that you can do is a lot of people are putting pieces of metal or pieces like a pipe cleaner in above the nose, and I don't have any here, but if you were, so let's say pretend you would just, before you close up this end, you would come in and put that piece of pipe cleaner, and then you would come in and just take and stitch. I'd probably use my zipper foot, but you would come in and stitch all the way across to hold that pipe cleaner in place. And now I would have already had my end folded in here, so I would have had this folded in like that, so that would all be caught up within that piece. But you kind of get what I mean. So that would be the place where you could put something bendable to put, so it would form around the nose. You don't have to do that, but it's a really nice, it just makes it a little bit more form-fitting. So I'm going to show you a quick technique to use bias binding. Bias binding is actually a tape that is folded in half and actually in half again. So you can actually insert the side into that, so it makes it really easy. So what you're going to want to do is figure out how much you're going to need to wrap around your head, and you're going to start stitching at the top. So I'm going to just start back here, and I'm going to stitch down to the point where I think that I'm going to insert my mask material. Now I'm guessing this is not accurate. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to fold my mask material to whatever size my pattern. Again, I'm just showing you a quick idea. Is this perfect? No, it's not perfect, because I just want to give you a quick idea of how to do this. So this is going to be, remember, we don't want a pin in here, so I'm trying to hold all this with my hands. Now I do have these great little clips that I can come in here and clip down to help as a second hand. And I open that tape up, I insert that, I'm going to fold those edges over, and then I'm going to just keep stitching. So I'm going to stitch and encapsulate all of that, and I'm just going to continue stitching until I have the length of sides that I would normally tie. Now, of course, these are way too short, but this is just to give you an idea of how that technique is. Now, is my technique perfect? No. When we're making draperies, yes, they are. But I'm just trying to show you quick and easy how to do this so we can get the most mask out there in the least amount of time, because we all need to be wearing masks in public. So another product is Twill Tape, and this tape is about 3/4 inches wide, and we kind of use it like bias binding. You literally can fold it in half and then just fold it over your edge just like you would do the bias binding. So just, pleat it like you would, and then just fold it over and stitch it, and then make the ends extra long. The nice thing about Twill Tape is it's fairly heavy, but when you tie it and knot it or tie it in a bow, it's not going to slip like some sort of satiny tape. So you always want to use like a grosgrain ribbon or Twill Tape so that it doesn't. Hey Josie, how are you doing? I have a little helper. Well, I did have a little helper. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope I provided you with some information and some hacks and tips that will help you be able to produce masks on a bigger quantity than what you have in the past. Make them a lot faster so we can get them out to our communities that are in need. Thank you so much again, and if I can be of any help, feel free to email me at Christy@ChristyCooperDesign.net or on my website at ChristyCooperDesign.net. And look me up on Facebook. I'm also under Christy Cooper Design. So anyway, look me up. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will try to answer them in the comments below.